Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's see what happens and see what comes flying out of my face as I watch.
And then I feel like the second we met, the connection was still there. He's probably the best human I've ever met in my life. He's such a good person.
Okay, so we're learning that Johnie and Chris, after Chris was basically saying, I don't know about this, they met in the airport and decided to date, which, I think is a good thing because I thought that they did have potential. And we're also learning that she thinks of him as such a good person and she's starting to cry. At first, I'm thinking she's crying because she's just joyful, or she's reminded of how a lot of people haven't been good or good to her. And so that feeling is sort of mixed. It's like, oh, he's such a good person. And then you remember all the bad people in your life and you're like, oh, it's just a lot of emotion. Who knows? Or she's crying because she knows that she doesn't want to be with him. And she's like, oh, he's such a good person and I'm going to have to hurt his feelings. She's crying. It doesn't look like that one. It looks like it's something along the lines of what I was saying earlier.
I'm like, I want to be more like he is. My mom has met him and she said he's the best person you've ever dated within 5 minutes. So that's the type of person that Chris is. And I feel grateful that he's giving me another chance.
What I'd be curious for their sake is if she feels chemistry or, that va-va-voom for him, because she was saying that he was boring, right? And it's quite possible that in person that boredom isn't there. So I don't know. At least I'd hope for her sake and for their sake.
I'm trying to take a nap and he took a phone call with his dad and then he walked off. And I was like, damn, I kind of miss him. And he walked up and he squeezed my hand. And I was like, I'm in love with this person at the airport.
Okay, well, we could also add to the hypothesis that she is still within her flighty, seemingly potentially flighty nature of proclaiming love and then later realizing it wasn't actually real love. Maybe it's confusion with just I like this person, and then she, exaggerates it in her mind of, this, I'm totally in love, or she just doesn't want to be alone, or, who knows? Maybe she's not in touch with her feelings. I don't know. We don't have a lot of data in that camp, but that was one of the hypotheses based on what she and others were saying.
You seem happy with Stacy, and I'm happy with Chris.
I'm glad I made the decision that I made. I heard a lot of sketchy shit about you. Pretty much the things that you were telling me, I wasn't the only guy you were telling.
So you're upset?
Okay, so my memory of all the different things that happened was that Johnie was seen on camera bad-mouthing Stacy in unfair manner a number of times, like at least 3 or 4 times. And initially, we might let Johnie off the hook a little bit because if we believe that she was very much in love with Izzy, to have to sit there next to the person that does get with Izzy while you're in total pain and you're going to be hurt and you're going to say a lot of things, you're going to think a lot of things. In that moment, it's not a great look, but I was holding out for the possibility that once she's able to relax, she'll have a different point of view, or at least be able to express a different point of view. And then later on, when she had some time to think, she was still basically saying those kinds of things against Stacy. So that you could criticize her for, but that the other bit about that she was lying or she was saying the same things to Chris as she was to Izzy, that wasn't, at least the way that they were talking about it, that wasn't what I had seen or remember. That she was, having that regular Love is Blind pod experience where she's narrowed it down to 2 different people and she's on the fence, but she's like, oh, but this one really And in that moment, as she's telling Izzy, you're the one for me, she's saying, well, yeah, okay, so I remember the details. She was saying, well, normally I would go for the Chris. He's the safe bet, but I want to actually, and that's never worked out for me. So I want to go with you, Izzy, because I'm in love with you, and this is more likely to work because it's not the safe bet. It's not the boring bet, right? It's more risky for me because I'm more invested. And Izzy shoots her down. And then I think it's legitimate for her to reevaluate. It could be a part of her flightiness. It's some strong evidence there, but who knows? But I could see in the time after that, even if it was just a few hours, a lot can happen in that time, that she's just like, oh, especially given how things would feel for her in the moment, that she'd be like, oh, no, I was wrong. Izzy was the safe bet, the boring bet, the common bet that I would make. And Chris is more of the risky one and the one that I think I feel more potential with. And I was actually rejecting Chris at first because I was scared of actually putting myself out there into a real relationship. And so then she tells Chris the same thing she was telling Izzy, but she's not lying. She came to that conclusion after experiencing Izzy breaking up with her. Now, a lot of people could say, including Izzy and Chris and Stacy, I suppose, that, well, isn't that convenient that when Izzy rejects you, now all of a sudden Chris was the one all along? That doesn't make any sense. You're just using Chris as a crutch or as a rebound or something. Yeah, that is possible. But a lot of things are possible, and so we just don't know. But I think that Izzy, hearing what he heard, I think it's okay for him to, I think, come to that conclusion, because it is factual that she did say the same thing to two different people in a short span of time.
And when Chris randomly gets a call from you to go back in and see him,
Why would it matter? You're not seeing me.
No, it didn't matter to me. What mattered to me was you told him one thing and you told me the opposite.
Like, I could leave here with Chris and I know exactly what our life would look like. And I know how he would treat me.
Right. And it is kind of interesting that the pod experience, I was going to say experiment, but I don't like that term. In my field, we have a word, we use the word experiment for a very specific thing. But anyway, so then halfway through experiment, I tried to change it to experience. So what's unique about the experiment is that the people that you're dating can talk with the other people you're dating. So it's harder to get away with shenanigans, and I don't know if it's shenanigans, but inconsistencies at the very least.
And I know how he would treat me, but I wasn't falling in love with him. I'm wondering if I repeated a pattern with Izzy. I tend to go for people who are emotionally unavailable.
Yeah, those two statements are less inconsistent than I thought they were. So it does kind of lend itself to at least the possibility that she's not lying, that she did come to a realization after being dumped by Izzy. What she's saying isn't unreasonable, that she's just like, because from her standpoint, when she was dating Chris and Izzy, she did, I think, perceive, I don't know if she voiced this, but she has now, that for Izzy, he wasn't as emotionally available as Chris was, right? I don't know, but the clips that we saw, I think that's a thing that she could come to, the conclusion. And so her rationale for how she felt about Izzy wasn't this, right? She didn't say, Chris was emotionally unavailable, but you are. She just had her reasons as to why, what I'm saying? Like, there is some, like she's saying, I didn't fall in love with him. Now, love is weird, right? So she could have felt love. We tend to think about this love thing as like, it happens and then it's this concrete thing and you have it and you always have it, or blah, blah, blah. But love is very difficult to define, especially in a situation like this. How do you know you love someone? Well, and we can think about this in our own lives when you first start dating someone and you're really falling for someone. Do you love them? Have you ever had that feeling where you feel like you're falling for someone and then a month later or a year later, you're like, yeah, I don't think I was ever actually in love with that person. What's what's right, what's the truth, what's the science. It's just ways of languaging what we're experiencing. So could everything that she's saying right now be honest? Because I think that's what she's being accused of, is being dishonest. Could it be honest, but at the same time inconsistent? Yeah, absolutely. Could it also be lies to them as a way of manipulating? Could be. Could it be lies to herself? Could it be her trying to, re-narrativize the situation because she, like in this moment, she's committing to Izzy. And there's a possibility that she did have feelings still for Chris, but she doesn't want to say that, or she doesn't want to think it because she's committing. And she's like, I didn't love Chris and he's boring and I want to be with you. You're the best. But that's not exactly accurate because there is some feelings that she has for Chris. Then when things go bad with Izzy, she opens her mind up to the possibility that she does have feelings for Chris, and she does find those feelings. I think painting her in this light of someone who is lying the whole time, I think that's a leap. It's possible for sure. But I think more likely if there is some deception, she's deceiving herself. She seems to indicate some signs that she is, I don't know what word to say. I was going to say desperate, but that has a negative connotation. That she really, really, really wants a secure relationship, and she's very afraid that she won't be able to ever find one. And so that can cause one to have a variety of coping mechanisms. One is to just rush into things or convince yourself that something is working when it might not be, or it's not really at that level yet or something.
Fair enough.
Can I please talk now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, everything you've said has been accurate. I said, Chris, I can see a clear future. Izzy, I have the most emotional reaction to. So then when you broke up with me, I replayed both relationships and I repeated a pattern. You were my number.
Right. So my speculation is she's confirming it, is that, yes, in the moment I had this mindset with you, Izzy, and then when you broke up with me, I replayed the whole thing in my mind, and I realized, no, actually, I thought Izzy was the healthy choice and that Chris was the common choice, which I have learned is a bad instinct of mine. But then I realized after you broke up with me that it was the opposite. You were actually the choice that I normally would make that would not go so well for me. And Chris was. Now, it's an interesting kind of conclusion to come to, because how would you know? And you would think if you're her, you'd be like, I believe that this is true after Izzy broke up with me, but 3 hours ago, I thought the opposite, so maybe I should slow down.
One. So to me, I was like fucking heart.
Then again, I wasn't your only number one.
No,
so
you were
again,
my.
when I was
Okay,
telling
can you just listen to me real quick? The whole time we were in the pods, the whole time we were dating, I had one number one, which is why I'm now trying to make shit up to Chris for being my number two.
Okay, so Izzy was accusing her of making Chris her number one, telling Chris that you're my number one. And yeah, that we didn't see that. Otherwise, I think I would remember that detail. And she's like, no. You were my number one. He was my number two. And that was always the case. Now, is it possible that Johnie, gave an impression to Chris otherwise? We didn't see that, I don't think.
In the end, you were right. You're not my person. I'm not your person. I think we're emotionally volatile.
If I can give you advice.
No, I don't need.
So you'll often hear me say that if you're about to give advice, ask for permission. It's a very quick, simple question. Would you like some unsolicited advice? Would you like some advice on this? Because if someone doesn't want your advice, then it's probably not healthy to say it, right? You're not doing anyone any good. And a lot of the time, people are not interested in your advice. So he says that. Now, she said earlier that we're both emotionally volatile, which I think is potentially accurate about her. I don't know what she means by that. And I don't think necessarily it's a bad thing. She wears her heart on her sleeve, I guess. It's hard to know what's going on with her, but anyway. But I would not say that Izzy is similar to her in that way. She saw him that way, but and it's hard to know what she means by that, but it's hard to imagine anyone looking at Izzy and saying that he was any sort of definition of emotionally volatile.
Your advice.
I feel like you do need it, because honestly, it's not just me. Everyone thinks you're sketchy as fuck.
Okay.
Honestly, like.
That's your advice? You're sketchy as fuck? And even though you just provided some information that I hadn't heard before because I wasn't aware of all these things that happened behind the scenes, I'm just writing it all off because you're sketchy as fuck. That's what I have declared. And that's my advice to you, is you're sketchy as fuck. Now, he's probably had a couple drinks, who knows, and also he has been hearing from Stacy and maybe other people in the lounge, the women's lounge, that Johnie was talking shit about Stacy, a lot. And hearing that through Stacy and others, Izzy naturally is upset at Johnie, defensive, trying to defend Stacy and saying, you are like a bully or a badmouther, or you're unfairly hostile, you're mean, and you hurt my partner, my fiance, and I don't like you. Okay, maybe that's where it's coming from.
Thank you.
And this is not to bash you. This is just, I was emotionally invested in you at a point in time, and I'm so glad that I didn't end up that way. Not because of our connection, it's everything that I heard.
You can sort of hear it in his voice. He doesn't sound not intoxicated. So he's saying, not to bash you, but I'm so happy that I dumped you. I think, it's like, who knows what he's heard, who knows where he's coming from. But in terms of what, I don't know what the general consensus is about Johnie. I don't know if everyone hates her. Often there will be that element if someone exhibits the sort of behavior that she had. But I think, I'm trying to think if anyone in this season is deserving of hatred from the audience, or from me. And yeah, there's nobody, and including Johnie. So I'm not saying Johnie is this awesome human being, and I don't know, but in terms of what we saw, I was just looking at my notes to see all the different people. I don't think there's any reason to bash her and to kick her while she's down. I feel like the first bit that he was communicating with her was sufficient, and then she provided an explanation. And if in his head he's like, I don't believe any of that shit, okay, then just say, well, agree to disagree, have a nice night. But then he's just like doubling down and rubbing it in. So that doesn't seem fair.
Should you maybe realize exactly what you're saying, and it was nothing
exactly
to do
what I'm
with
saying.
me, and it has everything to do with talk? Because that's not who I am as a person, and isn't what everyone else is saying.
So who are you? Because that's what the experiment's about.
I'm trying to tell you, and you've never listened to me, so I don't know what you want me to tell you.
I've listened to everything about you.
Yeah. I'm glad that Johnie can kind of see that. She's saying, look, it sounds like you want me to explain myself. I already have, and you have disregarded the whole thing, and you still believe I'm sketchy as fuck. So why would I try to convince you? Because you're unconvincible.
Because I'm not sketchy as fuck. Do you think I would end up with the nicest guy in here if I was sketchy as fuck? You don't know my story, and y'all are the sketchy as fuck ones, so I'm done with this. You aren't even listening to me.
I mean, I don't think anyone is sketchy as fuck. I think there are sketchy people on these shows sometimes, and I don't think anybody is. And so she's like, you're not even listening to me, so she's gonna walk off. Yeah. For Johnie, this could really play into some deep wounds for her that won't go well for her.
He said I was the sketchiest one here.
What?
I mean, basically just call me a piece of
fair for him
shit.
to feel how he feels. I completely understand that.
No one
I
thinks
guess
that,
the
right?
only issue
Nobody.
is that he literally.
You okay?
He thinks I don't deserve you. Basically, that's what he was telling me.
Yeah. I think it hits on some wound for her. I think she is walking around with that question. Am I a piece of shit? do I not deserve you? Am I doomed to never have someone that is good in my life who loves me? So I think what he did was unfortunately very close to home for her.
That's fucked up. He has no idea what we're about. Okay.
For me the most that he was saying, like, I know how great that guy is,
but like at the
and you're a
same time,
piece of
he's
shit.
pleasant, but that doesn't mean
You're not. You know you're not.
not transparent. So
Don't listen to somebody who's trying to hurt you.
Chris is being the saint that he always is. There's always a saint, whether it's Marshall or who else has been really great. I mean, Marshall had his problems, right? You're a project, but aside from that, there's just a lot of goodness in a lot of people on the show. Marshall's just really was shown to us, and Chris as well. At least what we've seen so far. I always worry that y'all have watched ahead and you know that some of these people have a very different personality revealed later. But anyway, thus far anyway.
Do you think I'd be sitting here if I decided that?
It's not.
He's just making stuff up at that point.
God, I hate him.
I fell in love with you. You're not a bad person. The people who are important don't think you're a bad person. Okay. The people who are unimportant might have their opinions, but who cares?
All right. Well, that's very sweet. It's very sweet to see. I'm going to take a guess and say that this is going to be a process for her, not only this, but also just her whole life. And I will say that the way she dealt with it emotionally shows that she has maturity and differentiation. She sat down, she expressed it, quietly with him. We can hear it because they have lapel mics, but I don't think anyone else could. And she phrased it accurately. She didn't go too far with it, right? And she didn't sit down and just attack him the whole time. Izzy, she could have sat down like, well, he's a sketchy piece of shit. And blah, blah, blah. She was being sad and expressing that, communicating essentially what Izzy was saying. I mean, Izzy didn't say verbatim, you're a piece of shit, but in terms of what the phrase means, I mean, that's the way it looked to me, that Izzy was actually seeing her as a piece of shit. So for her to feel that and to express it, to talk, to signal to Chris of her feelings and give Chris the opportunity to know her feelings and to take care of her, and for him to reassure her and hold her and talk with her, and for her to be receptive to that and to reward that and to take it in. It's very healthy. It's normal. There's nothing about this that indicates to me that she has some sort of massive wound. If anything, this shows a lot of strength. On a, frequent basis, we all should have moments like this where, and in fact, if you don't have moments like this, something is amiss, where you feel sad and you feel hurt about something, and you signal to someone that you trust, and you don't go too far with it. You don't beat yourself up about it, but you're wondering and you're signaling you want some reassurance or support or something, and that person gives support, and it's uncomplicated support, and you receive that and you take it. Like we should all be having moments like this all the time. I worry though that a lot of people would see this and go like, oh, Johnie, she's weak, she is broken. Whereas other people that come across as strong and they don't seem reactive, like Izzy and Stacy, I'm guessing have similar feelings like this based on what happened, and they don't process it this way. They stuff it, or they get angry or judgmental or whatever. I don't care about that piece of shit.
Okay.
I love you so much.
Are you okay?
No, I'm good. Yo, I called her out on her shit.
Which was what?
And I was like, dude, you're so fucking sketchy. Like, I was fucking railing her.
What did she say?
She's like,
Ick. So now, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something and everyone's like, yeah, Izzy got her. I'm sure some people are thinking that, but I don't know what y'all think. And he's going a little far right now, but given the way that it looked to me, I mean, again, the first thing he said when he was talking to her was that justified. Yeah, given where he was coming from. And he said it without a lot of hostility. He was saying what he thought. He was worried about Chris. He Well, he didn't bring up the Stacy thing. Did he bring up the Stacy thing? Anyway, so that was, it's probably okay, but then beyond. And then now he's like, let's rewind it. It's really, it kind of says something about, I don't know what it says.
What did she say?
She's like, all of y'all are fucking sketchy. And I was just like fucking pissed off.
How is everyone sketchy?
I mean, she did say that, but in context, it was just a rebuttal or a retort. It was a passing, shot across the bow, because up until that point in the edit, Johnie was holding it together pretty well under the circumstances. And then as she's leaving, she's like, you guys are the most sketchy people. And so for Izzy to tell Stacy now, I feel like we're watching like a middle school thing play out where, what did she say? And I'm watching it. We're watching it. We're like, you're misrepresenting the bigger picture, Izzy. And then because Izzy and Stacy have, I think, more, I don't know this, but I think they have more pull with influencing others. Now, of course, when the show comes out, but in terms of this scene, I'm worried that Stacy is going to get a coalition and they're all going to go after Johnie, and I don't know.
I could give two shits about her making sense.
And I'm just so grateful for you and like our relationship. I guess that's like literally what I'm thinking of. Like, I love you so much.
I love you
and I'm
too.
glad that we just like can communicate.
You look like shaken up.
No, I'm not shaking up. I'm just like annoyed.
Yeah, he seems intoxicated, but Stacy is like, what's going on here? And he's like, I'm okay. I don't have emotions. But yeah, there does seem to be some intensity there for him. And what would that be? I mean, maybe it's just an intense situation, like getting into a conflict with someone on camera would cause the adrenaline because it seems like maybe his adrenaline is going, right? And that, that'll happen. Maybe there's some wound that he is fighting right now. I don't know. Maybe he feels bad about rejecting Johnie. Maybe he's just feels a lot of anger he's been building up over time because of what he heard about the Chris thing and the Stacy thing. I don't know, but yeah, there's something maybe going on with him, but it could just be the tension of the situation.
But you said she didn't say anything, so what are you annoyed about?
I just don't like when people tell me shit that's not true.
What did she say that wasn't true?
And who knows, I'm always grasping at straws, but maybe in his early childhood or throughout his early years that there were a lot of things like that, who knows, and he has a lot of traumas around it. I wouldn't be surprised. And so when he is in conflict with someone who is refusing to accept what they did or reality, it can be very hurtful, very unsafe feeling. And when he was younger, he was powerless over that. And that is being revisited right now when he talks to Johnie. Because, of course, Johnie has no power over him. And so it doesn't matter how sketchy she is because she's out of his life. And I guess that would explain the intensity of... Because we haven't seen this side of him really just in a very determined way going after someone. And again, maybe it's justified-ish. But yeah, it seems like maybe there's something there.
Sitting with right now.
Exactly. I can care less.
She's a lost soul. Pray for her.
I don't even care about her. I'm just so good. I guess after being here and like seeing everybody
Well,
else.
don't compare me to the mess.
No.
Don't be like, I'm grateful for you because this is fucking crazy.
No, it's not that. I'm just glad we're on the same page through everything that goes on.
Yeah, I think he's a little hammered, and he's just kind of all over the place, and he is trying to have. I think right now actually he's bidding for some kind of togetherness with Stacy and is wanting that, and it's coming out kind of odd, and Stacy might not be picking up on it, and is just kind of like having a conversation. So I think what he's looking for is just like, I love you, and I think you made the right choice, or I love you, and I am with you no matter what, or something. I think he is looking for that. Okay, let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching, and everyone please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really, really do.